Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable Behavior Explained. Hi, everybody. Happy holidays. I'm so glad that you're here with me today as we head into this final stretch before Christmas and the holidays. This week can feel so magical, but it can also be incredibly overwhelming with our countdown and our timelines, and there's pressure to finish shopping and wrap presents and plan meals and the expectation that we want everything to be just perfect. And for some, this season brings a lot of grief and stress and complicated family dynamics. So today we're going to talk about how to prepare your heart and your mind for the holidays with a few themes. The first is finding peace when the lead up feels heavy. The gift of rest before the rush, and traditions and transformation, and joy and grief coexisting. And then most importantly, choosing connection over perfection. So if you ever feel like you're sprinting toward Christmas instead of savoring it, then this show is for you. I know that historically, the pressure that I put on myself, that was absolutely what happened for me. And trying to make everything just right and fair and even and lovely for all of my kids was really a lot of work and a lot of pressure and oftentimes pretty expensive. And it just took some of the joy out of my sales. And so I hope that this show helps you not have that happen to you and helps you to recalibrate in the final days before the holidays. So first, we're going to talk about finding peace when the countdown feels like pressure and feels heavy. So during this week before Christmas and the holidays, it can stir up a lot of anxiety, unfinished lists, things that aren't done, family expectations, family dynamics, or memories that hurt. Peace doesn't mean doing everything. It means choosing what matters the most. And so this is about learning to let go of things you can't control and adapting and being flexible. So maybe an example. A person realizes the big family gatherings trigger a lot of old wounds, and they choose a smaller dinner with some trusted friends instead. Or they stack some of their events with other things they want in between. Or maybe they don't say yes to everything and they say no to some of the things. Maybe someone skips the mall and the chaos there and orders a few things online and bakes cookies instead with their kids instead of running to the mall. And that helps to create some calm and some connection. So it's about reprioritizing what works for you. So this week, I want you to ask yourself, what actually matters to you? What's really important? What's a deal breaker for timelines? And then give yourself permission to decline events that feel like too much or draining. Maybe create a grounding ritual, something that helps keep you calm. Listen to some music or light a candle or go for a walk that's mindful and present. Get off your phone and just be in the presence of yourself and the weather and the trees. Maybe use phrases like, I appreciate the invite, but I'm keeping things simple this year, and so I'm going to decline, but thanks so much. Those are some ways that you can set a few boundaries around the hustle and bustle of everything that's going on. So I know for me, I love to rest, but I find it hard to find time for rest. And so you want to think about rest is not laziness, it's preparation. It helps you to refuel your cup before the hustle. And so when you slow down and you enter the Christmas with more presence, the Christmas season with more presence and less burnout, everybody benefits, not just you, because your bandwidth is higher and your capacity is higher when you have more self-care and take care of what you need to maintain and preserve some balance. This might look like a quiet evening with some tea and a book, changing gears and watching a holiday movie instead of doing a craft or some art if that takes more bandwidth from you. Or maybe instead of going to a big group event, maybe you have one or two small events with more intimate time. Block some time for a nap instead of squeezing in one more errand. That pause can help you slow down and show up with more patience for everybody later. And again, keeps you more in line with your values of potentially being kind and having compassion. But if you don't schedule downtime like you schedule events, it's not going to happen. So if you don't have a lot of time, maybe think about something you can do for just a brief sensory break, like grab a cozy blanket or a warm cup of tea or some deep breathing and just take 10 minutes And maybe you say to yourself, I'm going to rest now so that I can enjoy later more. And that might be a nice little mantra to just recite so that you have a more calm, quiet season. So now I want to talk about traditions and trauma and how we can transform our traditions to be more comforting if they're not. Some traditions can create comfort and some create stress. I know that I tend to want to do lots of big fun things with my family, and then I get so wrapped up in wanting those things to happen that sometimes they fail. I can think of a couple years ago, I was like, we're going to go to this farm in the neighborhood and look at the lights, and I want to do the zoo lights, and I want to do all these things. And then because I was so overwhelmed with all the requirements of everything, I ended up not getting tickets in time. And then I was really disappointed. And I had shared that we were going to do these things, and then I think family members were disappointed. And so this year, I gave myself permission to just have one event that we were going to go to, and I got the tickets really early. And then that's it. And I said, whoever can come, let me know now. And if they don't answer, they're going to be on their own getting the ticket, because I tried to prepare ahead of time, and that was the way I could tolerate and have bandwidth to get it done. So you need to figure out what traditions you want to keep and decide what needs to shift based on your current capacity. It's fun to try new things, and I think it's really cool when you just deliver it that way. Hey guys, this year we're not going to do the zoo. We're going to do a different place because it's closer, and I wanted it to be more relaxed. Another thing that can happen if you're in a big family is the stress of gift giving. So, people could opt to change that from a big gift exchange to just drawing names, or maybe even replace the gift with just writing a gratitude letter instead of providing a gift. And that way that doesn't have any financial stress associated. And that can be a shift in your tradition that could be transformative. The other thing you might consider doing is opting out of a big annual event with relatives, especially if somebody mocks boundaries, and create a new tradition. Maybe it's a quiet dinner with some friends in lieu of the big chaotic family event. But you have to ask yourself, does this tradition bring joy, or does it bring stress? Or under what circumstances can I enjoy this tradition without it adding stress? And then figure out what those boundaries are. Maybe you have to create new rituals that honor healing, like I talked about in an episode about gratitude. Maybe you have a gratitude jar, or you take a nature walk. Give yourself permission to change what no longer serves you and invite new things into your life that will be beneficial for the season. And recognize that those things can change depending on what you're currently going through and what your capacity has for you. And remember that just because grief can come up for some people around this, it doesn't mean joy can't coexist. So thinking about the week before Christmas right now, it can often magnify loss, or if you've lost a loved one or a relationship or a dream that didn't come true, this can be painful. And so grief doesn't have to cancel joy, and joy doesn't erase grief. When you think about if you had that loss, and this maybe is your first Christmas without somebody, you can feel sad that they're not here for the event, but you can also still enjoy laughter while decorating cookies, or cry later when you pick up an ornament that reminds you of them. And you can have both emotions that are very valid during times of loss. And the reminders around the holidays can really bring up some of those things. I've had clients tell me in the past, I always get depressed in the winter. And I start to get curious around what happened during that season, because you've got a lot of stimulus that's in the environment, the lights, the music, the temperature, the way the colors that exist when people start to decorate, and all of those triggers present themselves and can be reminders of a painful thing that happened during that time. And so I encourage clients especially to work on those traumas, especially if you are activated, so that the next holiday season doesn't bring so much pain or reminders. And so you want to make sure that you're addressing the pain points and using that heat to find your way out of the pain for the future if possible. The other thing you might want to consider is practicing both and thinking. So you can be excited for Christmas, and you can miss that parent that you lost or that friend. Maybe you want to light a candle or create a memory or an ornament to honor someone who's no longer with us. And that could be something special to positively impact your feelings of loss and bring some joy to the moment. And that way you're also kind of sharing the event with someone and not carrying it alone. You're putting it out there as something that's going on, and you're not suffering by yourself, which is really important. Now, the last one is a reminder I wrote into the show specifically for myself because this is an area that I struggle with. And I'm getting better. It's progress, not perfection, but it's about connection over perfection. So this week especially, people can put a lot of pressure on themselves for the perfect holiday events and peaks. And of course, we've got social media that's constantly amplifying unrealistic expectations and things being picture perfect and having, tables perfectly curated and themes with our presents wrapped flawlessly and family photos that are absent of any issues. And connection is much more important than the aesthetics. And connection is what nourishes us, not the perfect picture or the perfect table setting. And so when you think about connection, you want to think about your priorities. For example, my mom used to spend hours making everything so perfect, and we would barely eat any of the snacks that she put out because we didn't want to ruin our dinners. And, she'd be exhausted and irritable that she spent all this time doing that and then also feel unappreciated. And so I can remember one year I said, can you just reduce the amount of stuff that you put out? Because I know that you kind of want to love us all through our bellies, but we just don't eat all of it. And it's a lot of work and time and energy you spend. And so maybe you can let go of that perfection and be with us and more present more of the time, as opposed to making sure everything is perfect. Thinking about you burn your cookies that you make, and instead of being devastated that the cookies are burnt, maybe you make a game out of it and rate the charred masterpieces, who had the best one. And that could be like a new memory that you created related to the cookies gone wrong. And so again, it's about adapting your perspective on the imperfect moments. And Brene Brown always says the magic is in the mess. And I think that's a really sweet metaphor for likely what's going to happen on family experiences where there's lots of moving parts. But remembering that connection matters more than perfection will definitely help you through the holiday season when inevitably the variables will happen and things will go wrong. And think about, is this something that's going to matter in 5 years from now? And if it's not, this is something we want to let go because we want to focus on being present with the people that we love. That's the whole point of it. And that's what we would miss if we didn't have it. So as you head into this holiday season, I hope that you find peace and rest and connection, and remember that joy and grief can coexist and traditions can evolve. Give yourself permission to do that if you need. And you're allowed to choose what feels comfortable and safe and nourishing for you. So if this season, you find this season that way, drop some comments below about things you do to help yourself with managing the stress and expectations of the holiday season. And let's share together other ways that we can benefit from talking about this stuff. And if this episode speaks to you, please share it with someone who might need a little extra care this week. And if you want more trauma-informed tips on this, please follow my Instagram, Kelly O'Horo, or check out my website or DM me. I definitely interact with all of my comments. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season and you build in plenty of rest and joy. And until we meet again, don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.